Let's just head over to the phones right now, and we'll just say good afternoon, Talk 101. Who's this?
This is Peggy Stevens.
Peggy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Well, listen, you're doing fine, and of course, I'm Scott, and then Jeff is joining us as well, and you know, Peggy, of course, as we were talking about, a great website, PeggyKnowsStevens.com. Also, you have a book out, Professional Presence, that we'll get to here in just a minute. But I want to kick things off and want to talk about the fact that the Kentucky Derby, literally right around the corner, and of course, I know that with your roots in Kentucky, you're very well familiar with this big race.
Absolutely, and it's such an exciting time in Louisville, Kentucky. I was born and raised in Louisville, and just driving around downtown where I was this morning, you can see kind of the hustle and bustle already starting.
Hey, Peggy, Jeff Lucal, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Before we go any further, Scott and I want you to tell us, what is an edutainment specialist?
An edutainment specialist is anyone who gives training and educates people, but at the same time does it in an exciting way so that you're actually entertained while you're being trained. And so what we really try to do, because of some of the subject matter that we deal with and people take it so seriously, we try to lighten it a little bit. And so it's very interactive, it's very experiential, and very sensory.
You know, the thing that's kind of fun is that, you know, when you talk about the Derby, I mean, a lot of people go all out for the Derby and they get in the dress and the style. But, you know, I want to talk about some of the unheard of, you know, traditional recipes for the Derby.
Sure. Well, one recipe that's pretty traditional, but you can do it any way you want, is the mint julep. And I know that many people know it's bourbon and sugar and water, but flavored mint juleps are really coming on. And so you can have virtually any flavor of mint juleps, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and that really adds a great flavor to the simple syrup that you make to make your mint julep. So a lot of people don't realize that you can add other flavors to the tradition. And then, of course, we always have beef tenderloin during the Derby, but how you prepare the beef tenderloin is really important, and we always add a hidden ingredient called Henry Bain sauce, which was actually created in Louisville, Kentucky, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of a very souped-up steak sauce.
Really? Can you get this, like, online?
Yes, you should be able to order it online, as well as your very own Derby pie. Derby pie was founded here by Kern's Kitchen, and if you go to Kern's website, they can direct you to order your own Derby pie and have it shipped in directly.
Now, Peggy, is there just one kind of Derby pie, or are there various flavors of that?
Well, there are various flavors. In fact, people create all types of different recipes for it, but the true trademark Derby pie you will find at Kern's Kitchen.
I think that's pretty exceptional. You know, and these are things that folks typically won't hear about.
That's exactly right. With the Derby comes a lot of tradition. It also has a lot of pomp and circumstances, I like to call it. Very colorful, kind of a celebration of spring and the horses and the culture of Kentucky. And I think when you visit Kentucky and you actually experience not only the food but the track, you know, you just become a Kentuckian for the day.
Peggy, you talked about tradition a moment ago, and for people who don't know, your family has quite a tradition. Your lineage dates back to the first Jim Beam distilleries in, I think, probably the late 1800s in Kentucky. You have a rich family tradition. How does that influence your views on something that's important to you, etiquette and entertaining?
Well, it's interesting because, yes, my middle name or my maiden name is No, and so I am related by heritage, but I grew up very differently, not in the Jim Beam family, but I ended up being in the bourbon industry through another company. Also working in the hospitality industry for so long. I used to work for Hyatt Hotel Corporation, and I was really well-versed on all types of food and wine and beverages, entertaining, etiquette. So that really grounded me, I think, to prepare me to be an etiquette consultant.
There's a lot of soft skills that are missing in today's workplace, aren't there?
Oh, most certainly. And, you know, it's interesting. You will see such a trend right now on everyone is starting to really address those soft skills because of the way over the last few years of casual dress, and, you know, we have a whole new generation coming on that's very tech savvy, everybody being behind their computer. We've kind of lost our communication skills. And so the soft skills like presentation, etiquette and protocol, your image, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself, all of these professional presence cues are becoming increasingly important.
All right, I got to ask you about your book, Professional Presence. Tell folks a little bit about what the book is getting into, and maybe where they can pick that up.
Well, I like to say it's almost everything that maybe your human resources department doesn't tell you, because everyone walks in with their credentials, on their resume, with their job degrees and, certain associations they might belong to, affiliations, but it's the softer side of the fence that sets you apart from the competition, and that's those soft skills. So we've developed 4 platforms that people really circulate around, and it's everything that I wish someone would have told me early in my career as opposed to later, because it's going to help that person grow in their career and really succeed.
Peggy, a lot of people think about you, and they think about you as almost the First Lady of Kentucky. You represent Kentucky, you visit with a lot of people. What do you want them to take away about Kentucky after they visit with you?
Well, it's interesting because you said First Lady. They may think more of me being the First Lady of Bourbon, but there hopefully are more than just me. But I would hope that after meeting people in Kentucky that they receive a very warm and gracious Southern welcome. That, I think, is probably the most important thing that Kentuckians can do for out-of-town guests and tourists, is to make them feel comfortable in our home state.
Well, Peggy, before we let you get out of here, we would be absolutely remiss if not talking for just a moment about your being one of the first female master bourbon tasters in the world. And I got to be honest, how did you acquire that? Because that any way, shape, or form about it, that's a cool distinction.
Well, thank you. And, at the time that I was receiving that credential, I did not realize that it was so unique. I was just working at a distillery and really enjoying myself, and really got to know the master distiller, was fascinated, of course, with my food and beverage background and hospitality background on all the flavors that surrounded bourbon and the process and how it's made. So I was formally trained, and then that enabled me to conduct tastings around the world and really teach people, again, back to edutainment, in a very fun and fashionable way, the joys and the bourbon, the Bourbon Association. I
think that's an astounding, distinction to have, and I love how you have paired it right back into what you're currently doing, and I want to ask, is there, you hear all this in the news sometimes, but are there that much differences in bourbon?
Oh, absolutely. Now, traditionally, bourbon has a government definition that they have to follow as far as the process of how it's made. But then it's up to the master distiller to create kind of that secret recipe, whether he uses different grain bills, how long he wants to ferment, how long he wants to distill it, the proof level, how long it sits in the barrel and matures. There are so many variables that the master distiller uses to distinguish one bourbon from another.
I tell you what, I think it's a fascinating story, and quite frankly, appreciate you giving up some of your noon hour to come and join us. We've been visiting with Peggy Stevens and talking a little bit about the Kentucky Derby, talking about the edutainment side of the world, which she is involved with, and of course encourage you to visit Peggy's website, PeggyKnowStevens.com, and encourage you to pick up a copy of the book Professional Presence, which Peggy, I appreciate what you said. It is the other side of the coin that your human resources department wouldn't give you.
That's right, and I do appreciate you all having me on today.
Well, listen, it was a blast. Hope to have you back on again real soon.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Peggy Stevens, our guest here on Access Decatur. And you think about that. I mean, you really don't think